On paper, the NBA's 65-game rule feels straightforward and even sensible. Appear in at least 65 of the 82 regular season games, or you're automatically ineligible for major individual honors like MVP and All-NBA. The logic is clean. Reward durability, discourage excessive load management, and make sure the league's biggest stars are actually on the floor for fans who spend their money to watch them play. In theory, it reinforces accountability. But as this season unfolds, the rule is no longer just a footnote in the CBA. It's becoming a central character in the MVP race. And that's where the philosophical tension begins. Awards are supposed to measure basketball value, dominance, impact, transformation, not administrative compliance. Yet we're facing a very real possibility that the MVP conversation could be shaped less by who has been the most overwhelming force in the sport and more by who crosses a technical participation threshold. If the 65-game cutoff didn't exist, the debate would almost certainly center on two familiar names, Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Jokic continues to redefine what sustained greatness looks like. 30-point, 20-rebound performances barely register as headline material anymore because his baseline is so absurdly high. The offense in Denver transforms depending on his presence. Elite when he's orchestrating, noticeably ordinary when he sits. His on-off numbers remain staggering, his efficiency historically rare for someone with such massive usage, and nearly every advanced metric places him at or near the top of the league. His production doesn't just feel MVP caliber, it feels generational. Meanwhile, Gilgeous-Alexander has elevated Oklahoma City into the league's elite tier with a game built on surgical scoring, relentless defensive engagement, and late-game composure. He controls tempo, manipulates space, and operates as the offensive engine for one of the best teams in basketball. What separates him is not just volume, but precision. Every possession feels intentional, measured, decisive. In many ways, he has surpassed even the breakout standards he set last season. Ask analysts to rank the two most impactful players strictly by on-court value, and these are the names that surface almost universally. And yet, here's the twist. If availability falters, the MVP race may not be decided by excellence, but by attendance. Nikola Jokic is hovering dangerously close to the 65-game threshold, and that reality alone changes the texture of the MVP race. One extended rest stretch, one precautionary shutdown for knee management, or one minor setback, and he could fall below the line. If that happens, it wouldn't matter how dominant he has been. It wouldn't matter that his on-off numbers remain among the most staggering in the league, or that Denver's entire offensive ecosystem bends around his presence. He would simply be ineligible, disqualified, removed from the conversation by rule rather than by comparison. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sits in a safer position, but he is not immune. A short ankle tweak, a cautious medical decision in March, and suddenly, he too could be flirting with the cutoff. Then there is the third pillar of this season's elite tier, Victor Wembanyama. His two-way impact feels almost unprecedented in the modern game. Defensively, he alters geometry itself. Passing lanes shrink, shot arcs change, and drivers hesitate purely because of his reach and timing. Offensively, his evolution has been visible in real time. He is more comfortable attacking mismatches, initiating sets, and punishing switches. In a world without eligibility anxiety, he would likely be the Defensive Player of the Year favorite while pushing into the top tier of the MVP race. Yet he is walking the same tightrope. Now imagine a scenario that is not dramatic fiction, but statistical possibility. Shai misses a short stretch, Jokic manages his knee, Wembanyama sits out another handful of games. Suddenly, the three most impactful players in basketball are removed from contention, not by voter choice, not by comparative decline, but by rule. The ballot shrinks not because someone surpassed them, but because they fell 2 games short of a bureaucratic threshold. That is where the discomfort settles in. If those 3 were ruled ineligible, the race would pivot immediately to the next tier. Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, and Luka Doncic. All 3 are having excellent seasons. Cade has elevated a Detroit roster many projected to struggle, guiding them into relevance with improved playmaking control and more efficient scoring. Jaylen Brown has absorbed heavier responsibility, stabilizing his team beyond preseason expectations with consistent two-way contributions. Luka, meanwhile, continues to compile staggering scoring totals, positioning himself for another potential scoring title while checking nearly every traditional MVP box statistically. But beneath the surface lies the honest question. If every player were eligible, would any of those names sit first on the ballot? Or would they rank fourth, fifth, or sixth? That distinction matters. MVP awards are not just seasonal trophies, they shape historical legacy. They frame narratives. They influence contracts, Hall of Fame trajectories, and generational comparisons. This tension exposes a deeper philosophical problem. What is the MVP supposed to represent? Is it the best player in the league? The most statistically dominant season? The best player on the best team? The player whose absence hurts his team the most? The most valuable per minute? Or the most valuable across the full duration of the season? The truth is that voters routinely shift definitions depending on context. When a star has a strong supporting cast, critics argue he has too much help. When a star carries a weak roster, efficiency becomes the counter-argument. When games are missed, durability becomes the deciding factor. The 65-game rule attempts to eliminate that ambiguity by drawing a firm, unemotional line. Miss more than 17 games, and you are out. Yet basketball value itself is rarely firm or unemotional. Consider a hypothetical. Jokic plays 63 games at a transcendent level. Cade plays 72 at a slightly lower but still elite impact level. Should voters truly have no option to decide that 63 games of peak dominance were more valuable overall than 72 games of slightly lesser influence? The rule removes that choice entirely. It replaces nuanced debate with automatic disqualification. If forced to choose today, many might lean toward Shai given Oklahoma City's elite record and his balanced two-way excellence. His scoring precision, defensive activity, and late-game control create a compelling MVP case. Yet critics could argue that the Thunder's depth slightly muddies the most valuable argument, since they remain competitive even when he sits. Denver, historically, has struggled more dramatically without Jokic orchestrating every possession. Still, Shai's consistency and team success are undeniable. If he clears 65 games, he likely secures the award. But imagine he finishes with 64. No first-team All-NBA. No MVP votes. No official recognition of what was objectively one of the two best seasons in basketball. Jokic's situation carries similar volatility. Even if recent knee management has tempered some peak nights, his advanced impact metrics continue to scream value. The race between him and Shai remains razor thin when both are eligible. Drop Jokic one game below the threshold, however, and he vanishes from consideration entirely. That feels extreme when all NBA teams are meant to document the 15 best players of a season. Under this rule, a player could be clearly top 3 in the world and absent from the official record because of a 2-game gap. That distortion matters when history looks back. Years from now, record books may show Cade Cunningham or Jaylen Brown as MVPs of this season, both excellent players deserving praise. But if the consensus top impact performers were Jokic, Shai, and Wembanyama, and they finished outside the ballot due to eligibility rules, the narrative of that season shifts. Future fans might wonder how the year unfolded without seeing the names that defined it statistically and stylistically. Wembanyama adds another wrinkle. Even if he would likely finish third with everyone eligible, there exists a plausible scenario where he wins because others were disqualified. That does not invalidate his brilliance, but it complicates the narrative integrity of the award. To be fair, the league implemented the rule with understandable intent. Load management had escalated. Fans were paying premium prices only to watch stars rest during nationally televised games. The NBA wanted availability to matter, and by many accounts, the policy has nudged players toward prioritizing appearances. In that sense, it has worked, but unintended consequences linger. If players feel pressured to rush back from injury solely to preserve eligibility, health risks increase. And more broadly, durability should influence voting, not dictate it. If 2 seasons are close and one player logs 82 games while another logs 62, rewarding the more durable player makes sense. That is contextual judgment. What feels different is eliminating judgment altogether. MVP stands for most valuable player, not most available player. In a season where 1 or 2 missed games could erase transcendent impact from official recognition, The tension between policy and performance becomes impossible to ignore. The rule that aimed to protect regular season integrity may, in certain years, compromise the integrity of the award itself, allowing an accounting standard to determine greatness rather than the totality of on-court value.